The night was cold, colder than usual for early December in Chicago. The kind of cold that seeped into your bones no matter how many layers you wore. Rain fell steadily, turning the streets slick and reflecting the dim glow of flickering streetlights. Beneath an overpass near the edge of downtown, a young girl named Lily sat huddled on the wet pavement. She had wrapped herself in a thin, torn blanket that did little to shield her from the biting wind or the icy raindrops splashing around her. Her blonde hair, once neat and shiny, now hung limp and matted against her pale face. Dirt smudged her cheeks, and her blue eyes were wide with fear and exhaustion. Lily had been living on the streets for months. At just 16 years old, she had already seen more hardship than most people experience in a lifetime. After escaping an abusive foster home where she felt trapped and unsafe, she thought freedom would bring relief. Instead, it brought hunger, loneliness, and constant danger. Every day was a struggle, finding food, staying warm, avoiding trouble. But tonight, something about the heavy rain made everything feel worse. It wasn't just the chill, it was the weight of knowing there was nowhere safe to go. As she tried to make herself smaller under the noisy hum of passing cars overhead, Lily noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. A man approached, his boots splashing through puddles as he walked toward her. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark police uniform. Officer Ryan Carter. She recognized him instantly. Everyone who lived on these streets knew his name. He wasn't like other cops. While some officers ignored the homeless, Carter seemed to take pleasure in harassing them. He often patrolled this area late at night, shouting orders and making threats. Sometimes he even used physical force when someone didn't comply fast enough. "Hey, you!" Carter barked, pointing a gloved finger at Lily. "Get up. Move along." Lily flinched but didn't move right away. She wasn't blocking anyone's path, and the overpass provided the only dry-ish spot she could find. Still, she knew, better than to argue with him. Slowly, she began to gather her things. A crumpled plastic bag holding a few belongings and the blanket she'd been using for warmth. Her hands trembled as she worked, partly from the cold and partly from fear. "I said move!" Carter snapped again, louder this time. When Lily hesitated, he stepped closer, towering over her. Without warning, he grabbed her arm, yanking her roughly to her feet. The sudden movement startled her, and she dropped her bag, spilling its contents, onto the wet ground. A half-eaten granola bar, a cracked water bottle, and a small stuffed animal tumbled out. Tears welled up in her eyes as she bent to pick them up, but Carter shoved her back down before she could. "You think I don't see what you're doing?" he growled, his voice dripping with disdain. "Panhandling, loitering, you're nothing but trash cluttering up my city." Lily swallowed hard, trying not to cry. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but she knew it wouldn't do any good. People like Carter always won. They had power, badges, and guns. What did she have? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Unbeknownst to either of them, a sleek black SUV had pulled up silently a short distance away. Its engine rumbled softly as it idled beneath the glow of a nearby street lamp. Inside sat Dwayne Johnson, fresh off a long day of filming in the city. Known worldwide as The Rock, he was accustomed to attention and adoration. But tonight, he was simply a man driving home after work, eager to relax and unwind. As he passed the overpass, however, something caught his eye. A commotion in the shadows. Curious, Dwayne slowed the vehicle and parked alongside the curb. He stepped out cautiously, his massive frame immediately drawing attention. Standing well, over 6 feet tall with bulging muscles and a commanding presence, he was hard to miss. Yet despite his imposing size, there was a gentleness in his demeanor. His dark eyes scanned the scene, taking in the frightened girl and the angry cop towering over her. "What's going on here?" Dwayne asked, his deep voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Both Lily and Carter turned to look at him, though their reactions couldn't have been more different. Lily's eyes widened in surprise, while Carter scowled, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "This doesn't concern you," Carter snapped, jabbing a finger in Dwayne's direction. "Mind your own business." Dwayne raised an eyebrow, unfazed by the officer's tone. He took a step forward, positioning himself between Carter and Lily. Actually, it does concern me, he said calmly. I saw what happened. You grabbed her arm pretty aggressively there. That okay with you? Carter bristled, his jaw tightening. She's breaking the law. Loitering. I'm enforcing the rules. Rules? Dwayne repeated, his voice steady but laced with skepticism. Or are you just bullying someone who can't fight back? The accusation struck a nerve. Carter glared at him, his face reddening with anger. For a moment it seemed like he might lash out physically, but then he seemed to realize who he was dealing with. Dwayne Johnson wasn't just some random passerby. He was a celebrity, a global icon. If things got ugly, it wouldn't reflect well on the department, or on him personally. Still, Carter refused to back down completely. You don't understand how things work around here, he muttered, crossing his arms defensively. These people, they're criminals. They don't deserve sympathy. Dwayne shook his head slowly, disappointment etched across his features. That's not how I see it, he replied. Turning to Lily, he knelt down so they were eye level. Are you all right? He asked gently. Did he hurt you? Lily hesitated, unsure whether to trust this stranger. But there was something reassuring about his tone, something genuine. Finally, she nodded slightly. He scared me, she admitted in a whisper. It's okay, Dwayne assured her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. You're safe now. Behind them, Carter scoffed loudly. This is ridiculous, he muttered, pacing back and forth. You've got no idea what you're talking about. Ignoring him, Dwayne pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Hi. Yes, I need to report an incident involving police misconduct, he said firmly. There's an officer here harassing a minor. Can we get someone down here ASAP? Carter's face went pale. What the hell are you doing? He demanded, storming toward Dwayne. You can't just... I can, Dwayne interrupted, standing up to his full height. And I am. For the first time, Carter seemed genuinely nervous. He glanced around, noticing the growing number of bystanders watching the scene unfold. Some had even started recording videos on their phones. Realizing he was losing control of the situation, he let out a frustrated growl and stormed off, muttering curses under his breath. Dwayne watched him go, ensuring he was truly leaving before turning his attention back to Lily. You're going to be okay, he told her again, his voice soft but firm. Let's get you somewhere warm, all right? Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in months, maybe even years, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally starting to change. Dwayne stood firm, his towering presence commanding respect despite the pouring rain soaking through his clothes. Officer Ryan Carter glared at him, frustration boiling over as he realized he was losing control of the situation. The crowd of bystanders had grown larger, drawn by the commotion and the sight of Dwayne Johnson stepping in. Some whispered among themselves, while others held up their phones to capture every detail of what was happening. The flashing screens added an eerie glow to the already tense atmosphere. This isn't your fight, Carter growled, jabbing, a finger toward Dwayne. You don't know anything about this girl or why she's here. Dwayne didn't flinch. His voice remained calm but carried a weight that silenced everyone within earshot. I know enough, he said, his deep tone cutting through the noise of the rain. I saw you shove her. I saw the way you treated her like she was nothing. That's not justice. It's abuse. Carter clenched his jaw, clearly struggling to keep his temper in check. He glanced around nervously, noticing how many people were recording the encounter. His reputation was at stake now, and he knew it. Still, he refused to back down entirely. She's breaking laws, he insisted, raising his voice. Loitering, panhandling, she doesn't belong here. Dwayne crossed his arms, his expression unyielding. And you think bullying someone solves anything? You're supposed to protect people, not hurt them. The word struck a nerve. Carter's face reddened with anger, and for a moment, it seemed like he might explode. But instead, he took a step back, trying to regain some semblance of composure. Fine, he spat. Do whatever you want. But don't come crying when this turns into a bigger mess than you can handle. Before Dwayne could respond, Carter stormed off, disappearing into the shadows beneath the overpass. The sound of his boots splashing through puddles faded into the distance, leaving behind an uneasy silence. The tension in the air began to ease, replaced by murmurs of relief and admiration from the growing crowd. Dwayne turned his attention back to Lily, who still sat on the wet pavement, trembling with a mix of fear and exhaustion. Kneeling beside her again, he spoke softly, his voice filled with genuine concern. "Hey, are you okay? Did he hurt you?" Lily hesitated, her wide eyes darting between Dwayne and the spot where Carter had been standing moments earlier. She wasn't used to kindness from strangers, especially not from someone who looked like they belonged on TV. Slowly, she shook her head. No, she stammered. He didn't hit me, but he scared me. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," Dwayne said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "No one should ever treat you that way." He paused, studying her face carefully. "What's your name?" Lily, she whispered, barely audible over the rain. "Well, Lily, my name's Dwayne, and I promise you, I'm going to make sure you're safe tonight." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she nodded. For the first time in months, maybe even years, she felt like someone actually cared about her. It was overwhelming, but also comforting in a way she hadn't experienced since before her life fell apart. As Dwayne helped Lily gather her scattered belongings, a crumpled plastic bag, a cracked water bottle, and a small stuffed animal, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. A woman with short brown hair and a camera slung around her neck approached cautiously. She introduced herself as Mia Torres, a journalist covering issues related to homelessness in the city. Her voice was gentle but professional as she explained that she'd witnessed everything and wanted to document the story. "Are you comfortable talking about what happened?" Mia asked, addressing both Dwayne and Lily. "It's important to shine a light on situations like this." Dwayne exchanged a glance with Lily, silently asking if she was okay with sharing her story. When she gave a hesitant nod, he turned back to Mia. "We'll talk," he said firmly, "but only if Lily feels ready. This isn't about publicity. It's about making sure no one else has to deal with what she went through tonight." Mia nodded understandingly. "Of course. Thank you both for being willing to share your voices." With Carter gone and the immediate danger over, Dwayne focused on getting Lily somewhere warm and dry. He flagged down a taxi waiting nearby and helped her climb inside, ensuring she was comfortable before sliding in after her. As the car pulled away from the curb, the crowd of bystanders began to disperse, though many continued discussing what they'd just witnessed. Videos of the confrontation quickly spread online, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. During the ride, Dwayne kept the conversation light, asking Lily simple questions about herself to help ease her nerves. She revealed bits and pieces of her story, how she'd run away from an abusive foster home, how she'd been living on the streets ever since, and how lonely and scared she often felt. Each word tugged at Dwayne's heartstrings, fueling his determination to help her turn things around. When they arrived at a nearby shelter run by Pastor Joe Harper, Dwayne escorted Lily inside, introducing her to the kind-hearted pastor who welcomed her warmly. The shelter was modest but clean, with rows of bunk beds and tables set up for meals. A group of volunteers bustled about, preparing food and organizing supplies for the night's guests. "Thank you," Lily said quietly as Dwayne handed her a warm blanket and a cup of hot chocolate. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the gratitude in her eyes spoke volumes. "You don't have to thank me," Dwayne replied with a smile. "Just focus on taking care of yourself, okay? We'll figure everything else out together." While Lily settled in, Dwayne stepped aside to speak with Mia, who had followed them to the shelter. They found a quiet corner near the entrance where they could talk without disturbing the other residents. Dwayne shared his thoughts on systemic injustice and the importance of standing up against abuse, emphasizing the need for change at every level of society. "It's not just about one bad cop," he explained. "It's about addressing the root causes of homelessness and poverty. People like Lily deserve better. They deserve support, opportunities, and, most importantly, respect." Mia listened intently, jotting down notes as she prepared to write her article. Inspired by Dwayne's passion and sincerity, she promised to highlight not only the incident with Carter, but also the broader issues facing homeless youth in the city. "This story has the potential to make a real difference," she said. "With your help, we can bring attention to these problems and push for meaningful solutions." As the night wore on, Dwayne stayed at the shelter, checking in on Lily periodically and chatting with Pastor Joe about ways to provide long-term support for her and others like her. By the time he finally left, the rain had slowed to a drizzle and the streets glistened under the pale light of dawn. Though exhausted, Dwayne felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, for Lily or for himself, but he was committed to seeing it through. After all, sometimes the smallest act of kindness could spark the biggest change. The shelter was quiet now, save for the occasional murmur of voices or the clinking of utensils as volunteers served breakfast to the early risers. Dawn had broken over Chicago, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, but inside the building, the mood remained somber. For many of the residents here, mornings didn't bring relief. They were simply another reminder of life's challenges. Yet, amidst the weariness, there was a flicker of hope. And much of that hope seemed to revolve around one man, Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne sat at a long wooden table near the entrance, his broad shoulders hunched slightly as he leaned forward to speak with Mia Torres. She scribbled furiously in her notebook, capturing every word he said. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, though it carried a weight far beyond casual discussion. They spoke about systemic injustice, police brutality, and the struggles faced by people like Lily, those who slipped through society's cracks without anyone noticing. "It's easy to look away," Dwayne said, his voice low but steady. "When you're not directly affected by these issues, it's tempting to think they don't exist. But they do. Every day, kids like Lily are out there fighting battles most of us can't even imagine." Mia nodded, her pen pausing briefly as she absorbed his words. "That's why stories like this matter so much," she replied. "People need to see what's happening, not just hear statistics or read reports. Real faces, real lives. That's what drives change." Lily sat a few feet away, listening intently. Wrapped snugly in a thick woolen blanket, she cradled her cup of hot chocolate, letting its warmth seep into her cold hands. Her blue eyes darted between Dwayne and Mia, curiosity mixing with apprehension. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not in such a positive way. Most days, if anyone noticed her at all, it was to yell at her or push her aside. But tonight, everything felt different. After finishing her drink, Lily mustered the courage to approach them. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice barely audible above the hum of activity in the shelter. Both Dwayne and Mia turned to look at her, their expressions immediately softening. "Hey, Lily," Dwayne greeted her warmly. "How are you?" "Holding up?" She hesitated, fidgeting with the edge of her blanket. I wanted to thank you again," she said, her cheeks flushing red. "For helping me. No one's ever done something like that before." Dwayne smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me, kiddo. Like I said earlier, everyone deserves kindness and justice. What happened to you last night shouldn't happen to anyone," Mia chimed, in her tone gentle but curious. "Would you mind sharing more about your story, Lily? If you're comfortable, of course. Your voice could inspire others to stand up and make a difference." Lily glanced nervously at Dwayne, seeking reassurance. When he gave her an encouraging nod, she took a deep breath and began speaking. "I ran away from my foster home months ago," she admitted, her voice trembling. "They weren't nice to me there. My foster dad, he used to hit me when no one was looking. So I left. I thought living on the streets would be better than staying there, but..." Her voice trailed off, tears welling up in her eyes. "But it wasn't," Dwayne finished for her, his expression pained. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that, Lily. You're incredibly brave for surviving all of this." Hearing those words brought fresh tears to Lily's eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness this time. They were tears of relief. For years, she'd believed she was worthless, invisible. Now sitting here with two people who genuinely cared about her, she felt seen for the first time in ages. As the morning wore on, Dwayne made a call to someone he trusted implicitly. Lisa Bennett, a social worker known for her dedication to helping at-risk youth. He explained Lily's situation and asked if she could meet them at the shelter later that day. Lisa agreed without hesitation, promising to bring resources and support tailored specifically to Lily's needs. While waiting for Lisa's arrival, Dwayne continued working with Mia to shape the narrative of the article she planned to write. Together, they crafted a message that went beyond exposing Officer Ryan Carter's misconduct. It highlighted the broader issue of homelessness and the urgent need for reform. By the time they finished outlining the piece, news of the incident had already spread across social media. Videos recorded by bystanders showed snippets of Carter yelling at Lily and Dwayne stepping in to intervene. Hashtags like Dr. Justice for Lily and Dr. Stand Up Against Abuse began trending nationwide, drawing attention from activists, politicians, and everyday citizens alike. Meanwhile, back at the police station, Carter stewed in anger and frustration. Word of the viral videos reached him quickly, along with orders from Internal Affairs to report for questioning. His colleagues avoided eye contact as he stormed through the halls, muttering curses under his breath. He knew his career was hanging by a thread, but instead of reflecting on his actions, he blamed everyone else. The girl, the crowd, and especially Dwayne Johnson. By midday, Lisa arrived at the shelter carrying a tote bag filled with pamphlets, forms, and contact information for various organizations. She introduced herself to Lily with a warm smile, instantly putting the girl at ease. Over the next hour, Lisa listened patiently as Lily recounted her experiences, offering guidance and practical advice every step of the way. "We'll start by getting you into transitional housing," Lisa explained. "It's a safe place where you can stay while we work on finding permanent solutions. You'll also have access to counseling, education programs, and job training if you're interested." Lily's eyes lit up at the prospect of stability. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I don't know what I did to deserve all this help." "You deserve it because you're human," Lisa replied firmly. "Everyone deserves a chance to build a better future." As the day drew to a close, Dwayne prepared to leave the shelter. Before stepping outside, he knelt down to speak with Lily one last time. "I'll check in on you soon, okay?" he promised. "And remember, you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Tears streamed down Lily's face as she hugged him tightly. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things would get better. Outside, the rain had stopped completely, leaving behind glistening streets and crisp, cool air. As Dwayne climbed into his SUV, he couldn't shake the feeling that this moment marked the beginning of something bigger, not just for Lily, but for countless others facing similar struggles. Change wouldn't come overnight, but with persistence and compassion it was possible. One act of kindness at a time. Mia Torres sat hunched over her desk in the dimly lit newsroom, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she typed furiously. It was late, too late, but she couldn't stop now. The story she was working on had taken on a life of its own, spreading faster than she'd ever imagined. Social media platforms were ablaze with discussions about Officer Ryan Carter's misconduct, homelessness in Chicago, and the courage of one man who stepped up when no one else would. That man, of course, was Dwayne Johnson. Her screen displayed the draft of her article titled, "Justice for Lily: How One Act of Kindness Exposed Systemic Abuse." Scattered around her desk were handwritten notes, screenshots of viral videos, and photos of Lily, the young homeless girl whose story had captured hearts across the nation. Mia knew this wasn't just another assignment. It was a chance to shine a light on issues that too often stayed hidden in the shadows. As she wrote, Mia thought back to her conversation with Dwayne earlier that day. His words echoed in her mind. "Stories like Lily's matter because they remind us what's at stake if we stay silent. People need to see the faces behind the statistics, the real lives being affected every single day." She paused for a moment, rereading a section of the article where she described the confrontation under the overpass. The scene played out vividly in her head, The pouring rain, the frightened girl, the aggressive cop, and Dwayne stepping in like some kind of real-life superhero. Except he wasn't wearing a cape or delivering dramatic speeches. He was simply doing what was right. And that made his actions all the more powerful. The article wasn't just about exposing Carter's behavior. It was also about highlighting the systemic failures that allowed such abuse to happen unchecked. Homelessness was a crisis in cities like Chicago, yet it often felt invisible to those fortunate enough to have roofs over their heads. For every Lily brave enough to share her story, countless others remained silent, afraid of retaliation or convinced no one would care. Mia leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Writing this piece was emotionally draining, but she refused to let fatigue slow her down. Not when so much was at stake. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly midnight. Most of her colleagues had already gone home, leaving her alone in the quiet hum of the newsroom. Outside the large windows behind her, the city skyline twinkled faintly, a reminder of how many lives existed within those glowing buildings, each carrying its own struggles and secrets. By morning, Mia's article was ready. After one final proofread, she hit publish, watching as the story went live on the website. Within minutes, the response was overwhelming. Comments poured in from readers expressing outrage, gratitude, and solidarity. Some shared personal stories of hardship, while others pledged donations to local shelters and advocacy groups. The hashtag #JusticeForLily trended even higher, drawing attention not only to Lily's case but also to broader issues surrounding homelessness and police accountability. Meanwhile, across town, Officer Ryan Carter found himself cornered by internal affairs investigators. The viral videos and public outcry left little room for denial. Evidence emerged linking him to multiple incidents of harassment and excessive force against vulnerable individuals. Fellow officers began distancing themselves from him, unwilling to risk association with someone whose reputation had become toxic overnight. Carter tried to defend himself, claiming he was simply doing his job, but his excuses fell flat in the face of mounting evidence. Back at the shelter, Lily started settling into her new routine. Thanks to Lisa Bennett's efforts, she'd been placed in transitional housing, a small apartment shared with other teens in similar situations. For the first time in months, she had her own bed, access to regular meals, and a sense of stability she hadn't dared to dream about. Counseling sessions helped her process the trauma of her past, while educational programs offered a glimpse of hope for her future. Dwayne kept his promise to check in on her regularly. He visited whenever he could, bringing gifts like books, art supplies, and warm clothes. Each visit brought a smile to Lily's face, reinforcing the bond they'd formed during their first meeting. Though he was busy with work commitments, Dwayne made it clear that Lily's well-being mattered deeply to him. One afternoon, during one of his visits, Dwayne noticed a sketchbook lying open on Lily's bedside table. Curious, he asked if she liked drawing. She nodded shyly, explaining that it helped her express emotions she struggled to put into words. Flipping through the pages, Dwayne saw sketches of rainy streets, smiling faces, and even a portrait of him standing protectively beside her. The talent evident in her work amazed him. "You're incredibly gifted," he told her sincerely. "Have you ever thought about pursuing art professionally?" Lily blushed, shaking her head. "I don't think I'm good enough," she murmured. "Well, I disagree," Dwayne replied firmly. "Sometimes believing in yourself is half the battle. Why don't we look into finding you some classes or workshops? Maybe connect you with mentors who can help you grow your skills?" Touched by his encouragement, Lily agreed to explore the idea further. With Lisa's assistance, they enrolled her in an after-school art program designed for at-risk youth. For Lily, it felt like stepping into a whole new world, one where creativity and self-expression were celebrated rather than stifled. While Lily focused on rebuilding her life, the movement sparked by Mia's article continued gaining momentum. Activists organized protests demanding accountability from the Chicago Police Department, while petitions calling for policy reforms garnered thousands of signatures. Local politicians faced pressure to address homelessness more effectively, leading to promises of increased funding for shelters and support services. Inspired by the public response, Dwayne decided to use his platform to amplify the cause. He partnered with several organizations dedicated to combating poverty and advocating for marginalized communities. Together, they planned a charity event aimed at raising funds for homeless youth. Tickets sold out quickly, with attendees eager to hear Dwayne speak about his experiences and meet Lily, who bravely agreed to attend alongside him. On the night of the event, the venue buzzed with energy. Hundreds of people gathered to show their support, including celebrities, activists, and everyday citizens moved by Lily's story. When Dwayne took the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. But instead of basking in the spotlight, he turned the focus squarely onto Lily and others like her. "This isn't my story, it's theirs," he said, gesturing toward Lily, who stood nervously beside him. "They're the ones fighting battles most of us can't even imagine. My role is simple: to listen, to learn, and to act when I see injustice, because silence only perpetuates suffering." His words resonated deeply, earning a standing ovation from the audience. As Lily stepped forward to say a few words, her voice trembled at first but soon grew stronger. "Thank you," she began, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you for caring, for seeing me when so many others didn't. I used to think I was alone, but now I know I'm not. And that gives me hope." By the end of the evening, the event had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for shelters and outreach programs. More importantly, it inspired countless individuals to take action in their own communities. What started as a single act of kindness under a rainy overpass had blossomed into a nationwide movement for change. As the night wound down, Dwayne pulled Lily aside for a quiet moment. "You've come so far already," he told her, pride shining in his eyes. "But remember, you're never alone in this fight. There are people who care about you, and always will." Lily hugged him tightly, feeling a warmth inside that no amount of cold rain could ever wash away. The charity event was unlike anything Lily had ever experienced. For most of her life, she'd felt invisible, just another face lost in the crowd of forgotten souls on the streets. But tonight, under the bright lights of the stage, surrounded by hundreds of cheering people, she felt something entirely new. Seen. It was overwhelming, terrifying even, but also exhilarating. Dwayne stood beside her, his towering presence offering both protection and encouragement. He leaned down slightly to whisper in her ear, "You're doing great, kiddo, just take your time." Lily nodded, gripping the edges of the notebook she held tightly against her chest. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She glanced out at the sea of faces staring back at her, some smiling, some wiping away tears, others holding up signs that read, "Justice for Lily." The weight of their attention pressed down on her, but somehow knowing Dwayne was there made it bearable. After Dwayne finished speaking, he handed the microphone to Lily. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of cameras capturing the moment. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself before beginning. "Hi," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'm Lily." The audience erupted into applause, startling her momentarily. She smiled shyly, gaining a bit more confidence. I didn't think anyone would care about me," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "For a long time I thought I didn't matter. But then someone stepped in when I needed help the most. And because of that, I learned that I do matter. We all matter." Her words hung in the air, resonating deeply with everyone present. Some attendees wiped away tears, while others nodded in agreement. Lily paused, looking over at Dwayne, who gave her an approving nod. Emboldened, she went on, "There are so many kids like me out there, kids who feel alone, scared, and hopeless. I want them to know they're not alone. Things can get better. They have to." When she finished speaking, the entire auditorium rose to its feet, giving her a thunderous standing ovation. Lily's cheeks flushed red, but she couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, she felt proud of herself, not just for surviving, but for finding the courage to speak up. Backstage after the event, Lily sat quietly, still processing everything that had happened. Dwayne joined her, handing her a bottle of water. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. "I don't know," Lily admitted, laughing nervously. "It's a lot, but it feels good too, like maybe I made a difference." "You absolutely did," Dwayne replied firmly. "Tonight wasn't just about raising money, it was about showing people that change is possible. You showed them that." Nearby, Mia Torres was busy interviewing attendees and organizers for follow-up pieces to her original article. The success of the event had reignited public interest in addressing homelessness and police accountability. Politicians who had previously ignored these issues were now scrambling to propose reforms, eager to align themselves with the growing movement. Local shelters reported spikes in donations, volunteer sign-ups, and offers of support from businesses and community groups. Meanwhile, Officer Ryan Carter's situation deteriorated rapidly. Internal affairs investigators uncovered a pattern of misconduct stretching back years. Multiple victims came forward, emboldened by the attention surrounding Lily's case. Evidence included witness testimonies, body cam footage, and documented complaints that had been ignored or buried by higher-ups within the department. Facing mounting pressure, the Chicago Police Department suspended Carter without pay and referred his case to criminal prosecutors. Carter, however, refused to accept responsibility. In interviews with defense attorneys, he claimed he was being scapegoated, a victim of media sensationalism fueled by celebrities like Dwayne Johnson. His attempts to shift blame only further alienated him from colleagues and the public, cementing his status as a symbol of unchecked abuse of power. In the weeks following the charity event, Lily continued making strides in her personal journey. With Lisa Bennett's guidance, she enrolled in school, determined to earn her diploma. Art classes became a source of joy and healing, allowing her to channel her emotions onto paper. Her sketches grew more detailed and expressive, earning praise from instructors and peers alike. One teacher even suggested submitting her work to local galleries, planting the seed of possibility in Lily's mind. Dwayne remained a constant presence in her life, checking in regularly and encouraging her every step of the way. He introduced her to influential figures in the art world, hoping to open doors for her future. Though busy with his own career, he never missed an opportunity to remind Lily of her worth. "You've got this," he'd tell her during their calls. "Keep believing in yourself and amazing things will happen." Inspired by the impact of his advocacy, Dwayne expanded his efforts beyond Chicago. He partnered with national organizations focused on homelessness, poverty, and youth empowerment, using his platform to amplify their missions. Through social media campaigns, fundraisers, and public appearances, he kept the conversation alive, ensuring that stories like Lily's weren't forgotten once the initial wave of attention faded. Mia's reporting played a crucial role in sustaining momentum. She published follow-up articles highlighting progress made since the charity event, including policy changes, increased funding for shelters, and testimonials from individuals whose lives had improved thanks to the movement. Her work earned recognition from journalism awards committees, solidifying her reputation as a champion for marginalized voices. As winter approached, the city began implementing some of the reforms activists had demanded. New training programs for police officers emphasized de-escalation techniques and cultural sensitivity. Affordable housing initiatives gained traction, supported by both government funding and private investments. While challenges remained, the collective effort signaled a shift toward greater accountability and compassion. Lily celebrated her first holiday season in transitional housing, surrounded by decorations donated by volunteers. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of belonging. Sitting by the window one snowy evening, she sketched a picture of the city skyline glowing beneath twinkling stars. Beneath the drawing, she wrote a single word: hope. It was a simple message, but it carried profound meaning for Lily, for Dwayne, and for everyone touched by the ripple effects of one act of kindness. Months had passed since that rainy night under the overpass, a night that changed everything for Lily. Life hadn't become perfect. There were still challenges, moments of doubt, and days when the weight of her past threatened to pull her back into darkness. But despite it all, Lily was thriving in ways she never thought possible. Her art classes became her sanctuary, a place where she could escape into creativity and pour her emotions onto paper. Her sketches evolved into vibrant paintings, each piece telling a story of resilience, pain, and hope. One of her works, a colorful depiction of a sunrise breaking through storm clouds, caught the eye of a local gallery owner during an exhibition, hosted by one of Dwayne's partnerships. Impressed by her talent, the owner offered to display her artwork in an upcoming show. For Lily, this was more than just validation. It was proof that she was capable of achieving something meaningful. School was another challenge she faced head-on. At first, sitting in classrooms full of kids who seemed so sure of themselves made her feel out of place. She struggled to keep up with lessons after months away from formal education. But with Lisa's support and tutoring sessions arranged by the Transitional Housing Program, Lily slowly began catching up. By spring, she was earning decent grades and even joined the school's art club, finding camaraderie among fellow students who shared her passion. Dwayne stayed true to his promise of being there for her. He called regularly to check in, asking about her progress in school and how her latest projects were coming along. Sometimes he'd surprise her with visits, bringing gifts like art supplies or tickets to museums. During one such visit, he noticed a painting propped up against the
wall in her room.
It was a portrait of him standing protectively beside her under the rain-soaked overpass. "I didn't know you painted me," Dwayne said, laughing softly as he examined the piece. "This is incredible." Lily blushed, brushing strands of hair behind her ear. "It's not finished yet," she admitted, "but I wanted to thank you for everything." Dwayne smiled warmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me, Lily. You're the one doing the hard work. I'm just here to cheer you on." As summer approached, Lily prepared for her debut at the gallery show. The event drew a large crowd including many familiar faces: Mia Torres, Lisa Bennett, Pastor Joe Harper, and of course Dwayne. Standing beside her painting displayed proudly on the wall, Lily greeted visitors with newfound confidence. People praised her work, marveling at the depth of emotion captured in every brushstroke. When someone asked what inspired her, she simply replied, "My life, the bad parts and the good parts." Afterward, Dwayne took her aside for a quiet moment. "How does it feel?" he asked, gesturing toward the bustling room. "Amazing," Lily said, beaming. "I never thought people would care about my art, or about me." "They do," Dwayne assured her. "And they always will, as long as you keep sharing your story." The movement sparked by Lily's ordeal continued to grow nationwide. Activists pushed for reforms addressing homelessness and police misconduct, citing her case as a catalyst for change. Cities across America implemented stricter oversight measures for law enforcement and increased funding for affordable housing initiatives. Celebrities, politicians, and everyday citizens rallied behind the cause, ensuring it remained a priority. Officer Ryan Carter's trial concluded with a guilty verdict. Convicted of multiple counts of misconduct and abuse of power, he was sentenced to prison and permanently stripped of his badge. While justice couldn't undo the harm he caused, it sent a clear message: accountability matters. Carter's downfall served as a warning to others in positions of authority, reminding them that their actions or lack thereof would no longer go unnoticed. For Lily, seeing the outcome brought a sense of closure. It wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was about knowing that no one else would suffer the way she did because of him. Speaking to reporters alongside Mia, Lily expressed gratitude for the support she received throughout her journey. "If my story helps even one person feel less alone, then it was worth telling," she said, her voice steady and strong. By December, Lily celebrated her second holiday season in transitional housing. This time, however, she wasn't just surviving, she was living. Volunteers transformed the communal space into a festive wonderland, complete with twinkling lights, garlands, and a towering Christmas tree adorned with handmade ornaments. Residents exchanged gifts, shared meals, and laughed together, creating memories that felt like family. On Christmas Eve, Dwayne visited, bearing plates of cookies and stories from his travels. Sitting by the window, Lily showed him her latest Sketch. A snowy cityscape bathed in golden light. Beneath it, she'd written 2 words. New beginnings. "What do you think?" she asked nervously. "I think it's beautiful," Dwayne replied, his voice thick with pride. "Just like you." Later, that evening as snow fell softly outside, Lily reflected on how far she'd come. From the cold, lonely streets to this warm, welcoming home, her journey had been anything but easy. Yet she realized it was the struggles that shaped her, the hardships that taught her resilience, and the kindness of strangers that restored her faith in humanity. Looking out at the glowing city skyline, she whispered a silent thank you, not just to Dwayne, but to everyone who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. Somewhere deep inside, she knew her story wasn't over. There would be more challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them. After all, she'd already proven she could overcome the impossible. In the distance, church bells rang, marking the start of a new day. As their echoes faded into the night, Lily smiled. Tomorrow held endless possibilities, and for the first time in years, she felt truly hopeful.